what really killed Germany's feared panzer divisions in World War II. If you're thinking of epic, movie-style tank duels, you might be surprised. The reality is much grittier and far less glamorous. In fact, less than 30% of German tank losses came from direct tank-on-tank battles. So, what was the real culprit? The answer isn't a single, thunderous explosion, but a slow, grinding defeat. The single biggest enemy of the German war machine wasn't Allied armor, it was logistics. For every single German tank knocked out by enemy fire, 3 more were lost for other reasons. Think about that, a 3-to-1 ratio. The vast majority of panzers were simply abandoned, scuttled by their own crews, or just broke down and were left behind. Mechanical failures were rampant. These were complex, heavy machines, and keeping them running required a constant supply of spare parts that Germany simply couldn't provide. Even more critical was fuel. A Panther tank guzzled fuel at an alarming rate, and without it, it was just a 45-ton steel coffin. As the war dragged on, German supply lines stretched to their breaking point, and fuel became liquid gold. Entire tank divisions were paralyzed, not by enemy guns, but by empty fuel tanks. After the logistical nightmare, the second biggest killer was something far less dramatic: the humble mine. Mines were everywhere, and they were devastatingly effective. They often didn't destroy a tank outright. Instead, they'd blow off a track, immobilizing the vehicle. In the thick mud of the Eastern Front, a tank with a broken track was as good as gone. It became a sitting duck, easy prey for artillery, or it was simply abandoned because recovery was impossible. The Germans had specialized recovery vehicles, but they were always in short supply. A simple mine could take a multi-million Reichsmark Tiger tank out of the war just as effectively as a direct hit from a 17-pounder. Now, when we do talk about combat losses, what weapon do you think was the most destructive? Not anti-tank guns, as many believe. It was artillery. The Soviets, in particular, perfected the art of area bombardment. They didn't aim for individual tanks. They just saturated entire grid squares with a terrifying volume of high-explosive shells. A tank might survive a near miss, but its crew, optics, and tracks wouldn't. The sheer concussive force could stun the crew, damage delicate equipment, and leave the tank vulnerable. The Americans also brought a game-changer: the proximity fuse. These shells would detonate in the air, just above a tank, raining shrapnel down onto its thin top armor, which was its weakest point. A single airburst could disable a tank that might have shrugged off multiple hits to its thick frontal plate. There were other, more surprising factors at play too. The Soviet PTRD-41, a simple anti-tank rifle, couldn't penetrate the thick armor of a Panther or Tiger, but it didn't have to. A skilled crew would aim for the vision slits and optics. A well-placed shot could blind the tank, shattering the periscopes and vision blocks. A blind tank is a useless tank. Forced to button up, its crew disoriented and unable to fight effectively, it becomes an easy target. Then there was the psychological terror from the skies. Allied fighter bombers, like the Typhoon and the P-47 Thunderbolt, had a fearsome reputation. While their direct hits on tanks were actually quite rare, their presence was enough to sow chaos. The sight and sound of these planes sent tank crews scrambling for cover. They'd hide in forests or villages, which made them predictable targets for that devastating Allied artillery we just talked about. The fighter bombers didn't need to destroy the tanks themselves. They just needed to pin them down and let the big guns do the work. Finally, we have to look at the brutal, unromantic math of industrial production. Germany, for all its engineering prowess, was massively outproduced. In 1944 alone, the Allies produced over 80,000 tanks and self-propelled guns. So, when we look back, the real destroyers of the German panzers weren't heroic tank aces in evenly matched duels. The true victors were the factory workers, the supply sergeants, and the truck drivers. The real tank killers were broken supply chains, overwhelming industrial capacity, thick mud, simple mines, and cold, hard mathematics. The story of the tank war is not one of duels, but one of logistics and attrition. It's a powerful reminder that wars are won not just by brave soldiers on the front line, but by the colossal effort that supports them from behind. Thanks for watching, and if you found this interesting, be sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into history. See you next time.